Well, I think we had a sort of pre-jury process where each of us were given projects to work through on our own. So we had about 50 to 60 projects per jury member, and we had to break them down and get through about 25 to 30 projects. That's what we brought into the room 3 days ago. So when we started out, we had collectively about 150 projects coming from all of us. So it was already a big task in front of us. And the second thing was that, when you start out judging a series of submissions, you start with parameters and criteria. We had none. The brief from Ars Electronica was that, the notion and definitions of communities and digital should evolve with time, and you should bring your understanding of what you think digital communities means in 2022. So even though we had a broad understanding of what this award means, we had to still create our own parameters. So we started off by doing that. We looked at what we have done in the past with the award and brought in some parameters which we thought could hold as, if not a scaffold, then at least some sort of guideline in terms of how do we treat these projects. So we had parameters such as representation, whether it's innovative and artistic, does it have the potential to be a role model? Is it creating any kind of social impact? Is it dealing with issues of environment, ecology, politics, culture, technology, of course, but is it solving for a problem? Is it engaging a community? Is it using tech for good in some ways? So these are some parameters that we brought right at the beginning. And I would like to believe that we gave every single project a fair chance. We went through every single project, talked about how each of us felt. Every single objection and positive comment was reflected upon with a kind of openness that comes through in the process, because we all are coming from diverse backgrounds. Yes, so that was the larger context. We started with 155, ended with 83 yeses from that, and then broke that down, further narrowed it down to about 37, and then 25, and then the final 15. And the Golden Nica, and then the 2 awards of distinction.
I know that there's a lot of backward forward process, like how further we should go with NFTs, and like what is it driven, or basically what are the drivers of this technology. And right now we see that there's a lot of stuff that I don't know. I feel personally, I think I don't like it, and I think like we should not go further with this, and really stop there for a moment and say like, hey, actually the tools we use here right now, what is actually the essence of, and what basically is there some kind of art washing going on at the moment to much more actually pushing the technology. But we had this one project which is called, and it also got the award of distinction, which is called Strong Hair, that uses NFT, the technology of NFT, in a, I would say, very intelligent way. And so basically what you see at the project is that those artists, they are using NFTs as some kind of heritage archives to protect or preserve the culture of hairstyles. Culture of hairstyles means that hairs as a way to communicate, visual way to communication that shapes and creates identity. And what they did is they basically created 360 video recordings of, let's say, different people with different hairstyles, and saved it in as an NFT, and also, of course, sold them on different platforms. And with this money, they basically took it and put it back into the community to support basically the local community there. So I think here we see I think to me, and this was of course a kind of a controversial aspect, but to me it was a way how I would like to see this technology and this tool of NFTs is being used, and not just as a tool to make money basically, or to, let's say, hold back some whatever you see like specific artworks and then resell them in the future. So here I definitely also see like some kind of core concept, like where actually this technology was developed, where it comes from, and this is like a good project that speaks for the, let's say, inventors and the developers of this idea of an NFT or blockchain.
We're expected to bring in expertise from our own backgrounds, but at the same time, you have to be open to when that expertise is challenged by the project. What do you understand of the project? So you're supposed to be experts, but you're also supposed to be open, because there's always room to learn. there's always room to challenge your own perceptions and biases. And I think we actually dealt with a lot of that. I would say a step further from that, our own lack of knowledge, because there's only so much that everybody can, a single person can know. An example of that is when we were talking about this whole notion of representation. What does an award mean? Whose reality is more important? Is the fact that there is war going in one part of the world and they've created something that benefits that community more important than someone else who's creating tech for persons with disabilities? How do you make these choices? How do you decide what sort of ticks the boxes on those parameters, but what actually also pulls our gut? We have to respond with what we think we know, but at the same time be open to different perspectives. So, and we did that. I think that was one of the most precious parts of the process, where we were really open to what each of us was saying. So when someone's talking about their strong positionality on NFT, someone else is coming in and saying, yes, I get that, but this is what they are trying to do with respect to seeking agency for their own voices. And we were able to take decisions because we were able to balance that idea of expertise with what we thought should go in, but also truly listening to the other person.
Like super, I think, a democratic process we saw in the past 3 days, I think, right? So yeah. I think first of all, each of us came into that round with, let's say, some kind of, strong positions for individual projects. And the process was at one point like to convince, other people for their, let's say, own projects to jump on there and to get it into the next round. But also like just, to talking about and also like, presenting the idea also in a different way, and then change your mind in this process and suddenly realizing, oh wow, actually, yeah, you're right, there is something in it I haven't seen so far. And then actually, go also to take the position of the other side. That was something which was also super surprising for me in the whole jury member, as a jury member in the process of selecting the projects.
I think one of the interesting things, I remember when we started out with the final 25, we were like, okay, who likes this project? And all 5 hands went up. And there were 2 or 3 projects like this. And at the end of it, 2 out of these 3 projects that, all 5 hands were up, we kicked out. So it's not like we were married to those ideas. We were really open and questioning, why do we like it? Where is this likeness coming from? How are we questioning our own privileges in judging this process? So I think that is what was really remarkable. When you're engaging in a dialogue, you need to give the dialogue a chance to get you to change what you think in order to fulfill the vision of what this award is trying to do. And I think we really managed to do that and tackled all of the issues that we were dealing with.
I mean, for me, it was like absolutely clever and smart way to use technologies for a group of people that are not visible in the society. I think this was the first part that literally took me into there and said like, wow, actually, yeah, right. Why? Like, of course, you have this kind of projects where you think like, well, why nobody got this idea before, Yeah. And in such a brilliant way, like, how the artist is basically using robots as a, let's say, speaking tool for people that are actually somehow, banned in a way, or like they have to stay in specific places and are not allowed, to go, or by body physics, for example, or mental issues are not able to go in public, and this really gives them some kind of visibility. That's what was for me super interesting to see.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure you will know more about the project, but the premise of the project is the fact that there are persons with disabilities who cannot live a fulfilled life. And these are with severe disabilities, including, like Stephen Hawking, you can only move your eyes. So while the technology has allowed someone like of his caliber to be able to utilize his brain, what can it do for people across the spectrum to engage with the world outside without being forced to? Now, the core question here, and I think for me, the 2 things that really resonated for this project. One was the fact that we are all temporarily abled. When we think about persons with disability, we think about people who are, ALS, accident, paraplegics, but we're all today walking, and in about 30 years, when we are 70, we're going to need a walking aid. Or when you get a fracture, you're temporarily disabled. So this entire idea of disability as something that belongs to a group of people needs to be challenged to begin with. And what this project did was that it took that ideas of, if you do not have the ability to participate in normal life, here is technology that allows you to do that no matter where you are. You could be 30 meters away or 3,000 kilometers away. The way you do that is with an avatar. And that avatar comes to a cafe and serves at the cafe. And in that cafe, you're interacting with customers. That was one thing, like how technology can enable people who are outside of society or often not able to participate in society, not just because of a physical disability. There could be mental disability, people who are introverts. That range can be massive. And if they choose to participate, here is a technology that can allow them to do that. Secondly, what personally inspired me a lot for this project was the artist himself has been through trials and tribulations over the years, which led him to think about this technology. Ori, who's the artist. And what was remarkable was what was the motivation of this artist to create something like this. It came from personal experience, but the one line that struck me was he had positively employed persons with disabilities in his organization before this company came up. So his secretary was disabled and everything was happening remotely. So he would tell his secretary, okay, type this email for me, and he would do that. And once Ori asked him, hey, I wish you could get me coffee. So the secretary told him, well, why don't you make me hands? And that is what became the starting point for this robot, this avatar. And what's remarkable about that is, to me, that's a story of positive discrimination to begin with. When you employ people with disabilities, when you make your workplace diverse, new ideas emerge for us to make our worlds better. I don't know, in spite of Ori's own motivation and his own journey, would he have been able to come up with this idea if not for working with a person with disability with that level of proximity? So it was these stories that allowed us to really think about how, it's not, sometimes the product might be the best product ever, but what is the vision guiding the product? What is the vision guiding that solution? And it's the marriage of the two that can really create change in the world. And we felt that this project was a way for us to access communities that otherwise would not be able to engage with us, and give them the agency to choose how they want to engage with us across the entire spectrum. What was interesting was that, like, by the time we got to a final 25, we were looking at, okay, what are these stories telling us? So we sort of broadly pulled out some themes, codes, for the want of a better word. Can we group some of these projects together and see what's emerging? So there were a few. COVID was a very obvious one. I think we had one which we were very excited by called Tech for Democracy. So lots of participatory democracy tools and practices. There was one on solving civic issues and challenges. There was one theme around activism, digital humanities, art and interactivity. So, and none of these are not strict compartments. We could see that they were interchangeable. But we sort of broadly looked at, okay, if these themes are emerging, climate change was another one.
But actually, I have to say that I was surprised that there hadn't been so many climate change projects. I mean, like, we see that as a big topic in society, but honestly, I mean, when I look to the projects, I haven't seen so many of them. I was actually expecting more than, that was something I was somehow surprised. And also coming back to the COVID topic, I think this might be also slightly of influence of this, why we took this project as the Golden Nica. I could imagine that coming out of the pandemic and also somehow, coming out of the situation where we have, let's say, online video calls and conferences and so on, and basically somehow have a better feeling of what it means, or basically this kind of distance, being somewhere else and having a phone call over hours with other people. I could imagine that this also made something with us to pick this specific project for the Golden Nica, because, well, to me it was not so abstract anymore to imagine this, actually, to talk with a human or with a real person through the machine in this scenario which the artwork represents. So I think there's probably also some interesting influence by the COVID, by the pandemic, how we dealt with technology in the past two years.
Yeah, I do want to talk about one project though, which I thought was really relevant. which is actually a second special mention award, and that is Families for Freedom. And it's a group of women who have been coming together online, creating campaigns and online petitions, and going to different parts of Europe where they can make representations for their families who have been imprisoned in the Assad regime in Syria. So what was really remarkable about that is just this, how they have used digital to not just as an aid to create a community. The community was always there. Digital became a support system for that. It wasn't the reason or the platform that they used it, but as a tool. So sort of subsidiary role in some sense for digital, but the core of community. But what was really interesting was that here is a war that people have forgotten about. The Syrian war. Everybody's talking about Ukraine. And here are women still fighting for their families and all of the missing partners who are still in Syria, and calling upon world leaders to find out where they are or whether they're even alive, just so that they could bring themselves a moment of peace as to where they stand with that. And I remember we were having this conversation about why we should look at activism around digital communities, and further that theme. And one thing that struck us is that we're dealing with Ukraine now. This is going to be, in another God knows how many weeks or months, we're going to be dealing with the same questions about where are the soldiers, the prisoners of war, the families who've been displaced. What about questions that they want to ask? Who are they going to go to seek answers and demand justice?
Yeah.
What frameworks are we creating for these communities to come together? So for us, it became really important to put this forth for the futures that we imagine are going to play out, even if we don't want them to.
Yeah, I remember, like, also in the beginning, I think the first question that we asked each other was, hey, did you found any project that deals with the Ukraine war at the moment? And I mean, of course, like, it's just, not so far away. So basically there was not such a, let's say, project that we said, oh, wow, okay, exactly, this is what we are looking for here. But then we had this project, right? And then we said, like, okay, yeah, there is this, first of all, you have those families, those women, basically, they're raising the question, hey, here, where is my, whatever, my husband, also, so where are my children? I lost them. And then suddenly, I think very late in the process, we realized, oh wow, there's actually a direct link to the situation where we're in right now with the Ukraine war, especially with the influence of Russia. And I think this project can really could be a very good, let's say, metaphor, or like a project in its own, to show, like, hey, look, if we are not, interventing or dealing now in this moment right now at the Ukrainian war, then basically this is what we will get then. So it shows actually in a very dramatic way actually what it means there at the moment.